You're listening to European Startup Universe Talks, a podcast where we meet with startup founders, angel investors, and major stakeholders of the European startup ecosystem. They let us in on the do's and don'ts of running a startup, their career story, and the process of succeeding as well as failing. In other words, everything of interest to startup nerds. European Startup Universe is a massive network of opportunities for EU tech startup founders, connecting them with the best minds of the EU tech community, with unicorn founders, known investors, and experts. We have brought together European countries to join forces and launch startup programs suitable for their nation's tech founders. ESU aims to give access to opportunity for funding and expansion across EU countries. Welcome to European Startup Universe Talks. I'm Maritza, and today I'm here with Suvi Haimi, the founder of Sulapac. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you. Maybe we could just begin by, can you tell me more about Sulapac?
Yeah, sure. So from my background, I'm a biochemist. And then when we founded Sulapac in 2016, me and Laura Tirkkonen and Rajasalo and Antti Pärssinen, we all shared the same mission that we wanted to save the world from the plastic waste. And we wanted to utilize our biomaterial expertise to do that. So that was the kind of the beginning of the journey. And today we are developing and selling this innovative, sustainable Sulapac material, where we kind of have combined the benefits of plastics without the plastic waste problem. And that's who we are.
When you founded this, do you think there was something that influenced you to go into this direction of a startup?
Yeah, I think the most important point was the concern of the all the time growing plastic waste and the microplastic issue. And there kind of the fact that how that affects the biodiversity, the use of oil, all those challenges. So if you think about plastic waste problem, yes, we have mechanical recycling, but even in the most optimistic scenario in EU, where we have the most sophisticated recycling infrastructure, today we can efficiently recycle 15% of the plastics, and in the future maximum 40%. So that's really not enough. So we need to have new infrastructure. The recycling needs to be developed, but at the same time we need to bring these truly sustainable materials in the market that don't leave the permanent microplastics behind.
Can you tell me a bit more about the actual product? How does it work and how does it not leave the microplastics behind?
Yeah, so our material is made out of various plant-based biopolymers that are then we combine them with various side streams, such as industrial side stream wood. So that means that we don't cut any trees to make our material. So we just use kind of the waste wood, which comes from sustainably grown forest. But we can also use other sustainable fillers like naturally occurring clay minerals. And we can also, in the future, for instance, chemically recycle our material into biocarbon, which we can then once again use as a sustainable filler to make these Sulapac materials. And our materials works exactly the same ways as plastic with the same machines, so no new factories need to be built. The idea is just to change the material, and we try to make that transit to brands and plastic manufacturers as easy as possible.
That's fantastic. It's a very ambitious project, but it's also very, very needed. That is one of the most acute problems of the future to solve this.
Yes, absolutely. And then like if we compare, like there is of course other bioplastics and green materials out there. It's sometimes maybe a bit hard to distinguish what is a truly sustainable alternative. For instance, if you talk about a bit of the bioplastics, there is we think that the group of fully biodegradable and bio-based materials those are really the most green alternatives from the group of variety of bioplastics. But still, like there, the challenge is that many times very harmful additives can be utilized to make the actual products. And there we also have very strict criteria. What can we actually use and how we make sure that in addition to not leaving any permanent microplastic behind, we don't leave any toxic load to the nature. And then another challenge, if we take an example of a polylactic acid, which is a bio-based and biodegradable bioplastic. If you make, for instance, a bottle out of PLA, that still, if it ends up in the nature, takes 30 years before it starts to biodegrade. So we think that speed is quite too slow. So our philosophy is to make materials that actually mimic the biodegradation speed of natural materials like oak leaves. And for instance, our straws, they biodegrade exactly the same time in the nature if they accidentally end up there as the oak leaves.
That's fantastic, because many initiatives to provide environmental friendly solutions may not be as good for the environment as you initially think. So it's good to really be strict with the criteria.
Yes, absolutely.
Before you started Sulapac, you were in the academic field. So you didn't really have business experience before. How was that process of growing into the role as a startup funder?
I think a researcher career in university is a very good basis, because there also you need to be able to find funding for your research. And that's one of the key things you need to do in the beginning in order to just have the company running. Then, of course, there is many things that you can't just learn before you are in an actual startup. The challenge may be the biggest challenge what I had was in the beginning that I really didn't, as mentioned, know anything about even the wordings, what to use, what is EBITDA, what is a gross margin, and everything like that. So I needed to learn them by heart and then really Googling them in the very beginning. But then after you have the right the small understanding on the topic, you can always gather people around you which are the experts in the field who can teach you. And that's why it was very important to have, for instance, Antti Märsinen in our team. So he founded his first startup around wood compositor in 2008. So we were able to have all the learnings he had in his earlier company and avoid some of the mistakes and the things that slow down the develop in the business. But that's maybe the key, to surround yourself with people who know how to do the business, and then that they can really teach you, and then eventually you will learn by doing.
Yes. Yeah, it's good that you were surrounded by people who had these particular skills that you were lacking, and then you had the skills that they didn't have. So that's a good symbiosis, so to speak. But how did you find was it hard to find the confidence to be in the business Square without the previous experience?
I think there the key is to have the passion. So you really want to utilize your expertise to solve something big, which is kind of close to your heart. That helps always to kind of whatever challenges you have in front of you. If you have like a bigger mission why you're doing it, I think that's very helpful. And I suppose if you are a successful entrepreneur, you need to be very persistent. So whatever the first failures or challenges you meet, you just don't give up, and you just continue and find the ways to solve the problems what come across.
What would you say has been the biggest obstacle so far with Sulapac?
Well, I suppose there has been many and are all the time. Maybe there are in the beginning there are few, so really find the right team members to join, like really learn what kind of what are the skills and characteristics of a team player, what is kind of ideal, and what compromises you need to maybe do in in terms of the expertise and so on. So that's something, and I have learnings there. Like, I had very good recruits from the very beginning, but also made some mistakes there. And then I think the other obstacle was to really understand in the beginning is to the point, like when the first commercially available recipe is when is it ready? When can you put it to the market? So the point, like how to really define that point. There is no, it's not black and white. You really need to just in the end of the day trust your gut feeling and team members, like come to a compromise. Because for instance, Laura Tirkonen-Rajasalo, the second founder, she's much more perfectionist than I am, and from my perspective, the product was much more earlier stage ready, but without our kind of discussion and debate on the topic, it would have been too raw to the market. It was our compromise in the end of the day when we put it on the market and okay, this is now good enough, and then we develop another product later on. So that is another obstacle maybe. And now, of course, when you scale, you have new obstacles. You first of all, if you are successful making the proof of concept, how do you then scale globally? What are the channels you're going to sell? When is the time to have a local team if you go beyond your home market and so on? So the challenges evolve and change all the time. And for sure, if I would have, we have been discussing with the other founders that if we would have known all the challenges in the beginning, like for instance, that in the cosmetic packaging, you actually need to have food contact approvals in place. And the legislation behind that, it's crazy. So if we would have known that, we never would have founded the company, because there have been so many challenges and obstacles ahead of us. So they come gradually.
Yeah. I can imagine it's nice that you didn't know beforehand, so that you still.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Do you have a failure and an obstacle that happened in the past that you, looking back on it, feel like was a blessing in disguise, like a favorite failure?
Yeah, I think one should not be afraid of the failures. They are needed in order to have a successful journey. So more important is just to kind of understand the root causes of the failure and learn from them, not to be afraid of them. So if you don't fail during your journey, you haven't taken enough bigger of a risk that you can really have a successful business case. So that is kind of a part of the journey, to have the failures and learn from them.
Do you have an example of that in from your experience?
For instance, when like I don't know. So failure is also like, how do you define? But there's of course many of those, but maybe kind of a learning, if I put it that way. So when we had our material ready, so we started from the cosmetic packaging, and that was the focus. But of course, because our mission is so broad, so we want to really save the world from the plastic waste. So we wanted to understand which all applications we can do already in the beginning. So we went very broad, and we went too broad. So we forgot about the focus for a moment, and then we lose the efficiency. So we needed to get it back. So in the end of the day, the learning was that first build from the selected market areas the profitable business, and then go to other application areas. But also it was an important learning, like we got the detail bits of the information where this can be utilized in the future, which of course helped us to expand the portfolio. So it's a balance. So that's one of the learnings, maybe what we just lately had in our journey.
What would you say in the startup field in general? What is lacking in terms of environmental friendly perspectives? Because the companies are one of the biggest factors of climate change and the impact that it has. What do you think is lacking in that field right now?
I think one of the challenges is that it's very hard to enter to the market with the super sustainable products, because if you don't have the sustainability criteria there, you still have, like, you need to have a mass producible, functional, competitive in pricing the product, and you need to have variety of features. So then adding the sustainability there, it makes it even more complicated. So you need to take very big risks in the beginning in order to kind of build the journey to the market and be successful in the scaling. I think there is one challenge is that if you think about the current VC investor world, there is maybe a bit too much the thinking of the short-term profits, and that affects, like, if you the change needs to come from there as well, from the funders, that in order to really have a sustainable business and sustainable business growth, it takes time. But still, you can have, in the end of the day, you can have very profitable and sustainably growing business. But it's very different if you compare a software as a service business, for instance, where you don't have all the details of scaling up the manufacturing and, for instance, in our case, really having the sustainability built in every step of the value chain. So I think that's maybe one of the challenges what we are missing, the more in-depth understanding from the funders as well, that how challenging it is, the journey.
That is a very valuable point, I feel, and especially in the startup field, when you are trying to scale at all times and you want to do it fast, so that it's really good to have a more long-term perspective.
Yes.
What is your top advice to early stage startup founders?
The first advice is to kind of trust your own thinking. So of course, like, you should recognize what are your own strengths and what are your own weaknesses. Like in my case, I didn't have the business expertise or experience, so gather around people that really can fulfill the weaknesses or the experience you are lacking. But at the same time, like, there is always so many people who want to guide you. If you don't trust your own thinking, you are not able to create anything new if you follow. So you need to choose from whether you're a follower or are you really building your own path. And that's very kind of important step before even making the final decision whether a person will be an entrepreneur or not. And there also, as mentioned in the beginning, finding the right people is a key. So then once again, looking your own strengths and weaknesses. And also, not only from the team member side, also if you have the possibility, look also, you should be careful who you choose as an investor. Of course, that's not always possible, but especially in the field of sustainability, you really need to find the investors who understand that growing a sustainable business takes time.
I can imagine that. Do you have any specific advice for women startup founders?
There especially, I think it's very important to believe in your own thinking. I think that sometimes we might be too shy or to do that. And they're also, like, I think, surround yourself with the people who can support you. That's maybe even more important for women than for men. But otherwise, like, just be yourself. There is kind of no other way to succeed.
Also, that advice, I mean, it's very universal, but it's also very specific to women, that we tend to maybe not always believe and take up the space.
Exactly.
Have you had a special moment with Sulapac that you felt that you treasure specifically? That has been a magic moment when you felt like you've made it, really?
There has been a few, but it's more like because you are building the successful business case to save the world from the plastic waste. Like, you have the successes, but then I think the challenge is actually that you don't have enough time to enjoy them because you are looking again forward. What is the next step you need to achieve in order to be successful in your journey? So that's another tip, like, for entrepreneurs starting their business, that in remember to enjoy the moment. That's actually quite hard because you are so in depth of doing things, and then when you have the success, it's like, oh, but we need to do this, and this is a challenge we need to. So there is always the challenges there, what you need to solve, and I find it actually very hard to enjoy those moments. Of course, when we had, for instance, a Chanel product out there in the market, that's definitely a very, very important moment, that we were the first ones in the market bringing the sustainable material out there together with the global brand. So those kind of, when we are successful together with our customers, I think they are the moments where we really kind of enjoy those moments.
Yes. Yeah, that is very good advice. Also to be really in the moment, to really enjoy the things that happen, because it is, as you say, it's hard to focus on the moment because you're always evolving and making the new step. But
yes.
What are the future plans? Do you have any news to share, or the goals of Sulapac?
Yeah, so of course we are all the time building our vision to make the Sulapac the new sustainable standard, replacing plastics. And what is needed there is actually not only the fact that we bring the sustainable material to the market, we need to drive the systemic change. So the inefficient recycling infrastructure for plastic and all the other materials. So we really need to be successful of developing chemical recycling infra, not only for Sulapac-like materials, but also for traditional plastics, because that is the only way we can really reach our mission to save the world from the plastic waste. So that is kind of the long-term vision, and that's linked to kind of how we in the future hope to help the consumers. So we are building our Sulapac brand so that in the future it would be as famous as Gore-Tex. So when a customer or consumer sees a product where it's a Sulapac label or communication together with Chanel that we have now a new product together out there in the market, so Sulapac would kind of mean really a quality and sustainability label, so that consumers can trust that it's a truly sustainable choice what they're making. So that is the long-term picture what we are building. Then, of course, we aim to have this year more global launches with global brands, and we just had last week the news that the variety of luxury hotel chains like the Four Seasons are using our stores. So that is, of course, important milestone for us.
Yeah, congratulations. That is
Thank you.
That is really great, and I'm also very happy, we touched upon it before, but that, as you said, that it's truly sustainable, that it's not a greenwashing product that consumers think is the right choice, and then it turns out that it isn't.
Exactly.
So it's a really valuable value to have for a company. But it has been so much fun talking to you today. I feel like I've learned a lot. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, maybe one thing that I think that everybody can join the movement of saving the world from the plastic waste, like really thinking what are the everyday choices you are making in when you're shopping, and is the kind of the plastic packaging always needed? So first of all, try to reduce the amount of plastics utilized, and then trying to really educate yourself what are the truly sustainable materials, because there is unfortunately a lot of the greenwashing. So these materials are fully biodegradable and bio-based. Those are the ones which should be preferred, and those are the ones which really help us to build a planet for our children that it's much more cleaner, and we can be proud of what we leave behind.
Yes, yeah, that is truly very important. It's the biggest challenge of our generation. So I'm very happy that there are people like you who have initiatives like this, because this is the only way to move forward in a sustainable way.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot for today.
Thank you so much for you. It was very nice to be here.
You've been listening to European Startup Universe Talks. If you want to know more about us, go to thestartupuniverse.org and follow us on social media. Thank you for listening.